Hello, everyone. I hope you survived all the aspects of Christmas. And I'm continuing my ideas about sharing my ideas about how to become successful. And today we are going to look around two topics which seem to be exact opposites, but they're actually not. And you need both in order to become successful. One is sacrifice, and the other one is taking a risk. So sacrifice and risk are today's topics. If you look at the word sacrifice, this is something that is completely missing from our society. Well, it is not really missing. I made a mistake here because actually wokeism utilizes the idea of sacrifice, because what they do is they're seeking out new groups of people, and then they are teaching them that they are oppressed, and so they become sacrificial in many aspects. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the fact that in old times they knew that you need to somehow compensate the universe for whatever you want to achieve. So if you seek out the help of the higher energies, call it God, call it the angels, call it universal beings, you need to offer them something. And the best sacrifice was always something that helped to achieve that particular issue. My favorite sacrifice was I encountered it years ago. It must have been at least 15 years ago, when I used to present black moon meditations, balsamic moon meditations. They're very powerful. I don't have the time anymore, unfortunately, but it was a lot of fun. And during the Libra black moon, we did a little ritual to find our true partner or ideal partner. And one of the women was willing to sacrifice 15 kilograms of herself, which meant that she was willing to drop 15 pounds, 15 kilos, actually, 15 kilos. It's actually more than 30 pounds. It's a big achievement. It never happened, unfortunately. She never did it. And of course, she remained single. But it's a brilliant idea how you can actually help the process by really doing a sacrifice, making the sacrifice that is good for you, but at the same time helps achieve that particular goal. So that's the idea. That's the essence of sacrifice. Sometimes you can overdo it. You can push it to its limits. And I can tell you numerous stories where my clients put in a lot of energy and effort, sacrificed a lot, and tried to really be there for that particular or this particular issue, and they gave up their personal lives for their career, or they gave up their families for a certain relationship. And in the end, when they measured their success towards what they actually put in, they realized that it was too much. So that could happen as well. But the fact remains that you need sacrifice. You need to give something from yourself, out of yourself, in order to make something happen. The other issue would be risk. And for a long time, I thought that sacrifice and risk are really some sort of opposites. And I remember watching a Jordan Peterson video, which unfortunately I can't find. I must have watched 1,000 of his videos, and I don't know where it is. I think it was in the biblical series. I'm probably going to re-watch the biblical series. It was, I have a hunch it was somewhere there, but I may be mistaken. But he says that he thinks that life's ultimate issue is sacrifice, that you constantly need to sacrifice. Of course, he has the idea that life is suffering and the life's goal is not happiness, which I don't agree. I think the main goal for us humans here on Earth is to become happy, because if you are happy, you can achieve a lot more than when you are unhappy. That's my take on it. But what he says, as far as I remember, he says that it's either sacrifice or the opposite. The antidote or the opposite of this is murder, theft, and destruction, which are very harsh ideas. But in a way, he is right, because if you don't, if you are not willing to sacrifice, if you don't do some sort of sacrifice, it's not going to happen. And to me, to my mind, taking a risk is something that you need in order to leave your comfort zone and become more successful. Of course, again, risk has its problems, and you can overdo. You can overdo taking a risk as well. For example, if you need to go home, you need to get home on time, and you are late, and you sit in your car and you start driving really fast. Okay, if you see if a policeman stops you, okay, you lose time. So actually, by risking it, you may end up paying a big fine, or may end up losing more time. But we still take that risk many times in our lives. At least I hate to be late, and I often drive fast. I like to drive fast. That's the problem. Okay, I made a little table in which we are going to take some of the astrological features of these two things, which again seem to be opposites, but they are really not. And I think there needs to be a healthy balance between sacrifice, okay, how you sacrifice, what you sacrifice, how much, to what proportions, and again, risk-taking, which is also invariably important in many cases if you want to be successful. Let's take a look at sacrifice and the aspects according to which we can actually determine whether or not you are willing to sacrifice are enumerated here. We're going to tackle them item by item. But I would also point out that to the idea of sacrifice is best presented by the sign Pisces, of course. It's the ultimate sign for sacrifice. And taking risks, well, obviously Aries, and to some extent Sagittarius as well. But Aries is the foolhardy risk taker, I think. And we are going to take to go back to that idea at the end of the video. But let's take a look at the aspects. The main significator for sacrifice, to my mind, is the Moon Neptune aspect. And the reason why is because the Moon is your spiritual essence, and Neptune is higher love, unconditional love. So the combination of the two gives you the idea of just giving and giving and giving, and also if you have Moon Neptune, making a sacrifice doesn't actually feel like it. It's simply a normal behavior. Venus Moon is interesting because it takes the two feminine planets, which are diagonally opposed in many sense. In the last couple of thousand years, the feminine got dissected, the goddess got dissected, and the two main roles of her sexuality, the reproductive function and the pleasure-giving function, were just hermetically separated. And if you do have Moon Venus in a good aspect, in a flowing aspect, this is something that comes naturally to you. You can be the nurturer and the lover at the same time, taking care of your family and your lover at the same time, your partner at the same time, is not something that is hard at all. If you do have a hard aspect, however, then the minute you risk something for the other, it becomes a sacrifice. So for instance, if you are more inclined to look after your family, then you are more like a moon type, then you give up your love or your love affair or your partner. Or if love is very important to you, especially the physical aspects of love, and it's important that you are treated as Aphrodite, then you give up your family for your love. So the Moon Venus aspects have a double connotation if we take a look at sacrifice, because if it's a good aspect, then it doesn't really feel like a sacrifice. It comes naturally to you. Others may see you as someone who is sacrificing an aspect of her life, but not you. But if it's a hard aspect, that may be a problem. Chiron moon is interesting because Chiron, of course, describes the nature of our karmic wounds, how and where and to what extent are we wounded. And moon Chiron suggests that the nurturing principle or the family is wounded, or the matriarchal lineage is wounded. And of course, Chiron always carries the healing energy as well. So it not just describes the nature of of your karmic wounds, but also how to heal them. So if you have a Chiron moon aspect, it suggests that this is a wounded energy. So either motherhood or the mothering principle or the family itself is maybe wounded, but also there is a very strong potential and a very strong desire to heal these wounds. And Chiron moon flowing aspects help you do this. And it comes usually through some form of sacrifice. But if it's a flowing aspect, this is not how you experience it. Again, it is natural to you. If it's a hard aspect, you might feel that you're sacrificing a lot for your family or your motherhood or your own mother. Venus Neptune is, first of all, it's also a success aspect. I'm going to prepare a video on success aspects, and Venus Neptune is one of them. It's also a romantic aspect. If you have this in your chart, you love romance and you love the romantic aspects of love. It's, of course, the physical love versus the higher dimensional universal love. When you have this in these two planets in aspect, this gives you the idea that I will sacrifice anything to feel loved or to experience love. So this is how it comes in. And then Chiron Neptune is one of the so-called Cinderella aspects, which means that you want to find your knight in shining armor or the prince. And yes, you may actually, if you have the Cinderella, but the other Cinderella aspect is the Venus Chiron. So Venus Chiron and Neptune Chiron are the two Cinderellas, and it gives you the chance to find love. But as from a sacrificial point of view, since Chiron is your karmic wounds and Neptune is universal love, the two together indicate that you are able to overcome your wounds through some sort of sacrifice, through some sort of higher sacrificial energy. And then the fixed star diadem is also linked to sacrifice, which I'm going to talk separately. So let's take a look at the risk aspects. The par excellence risk aspect is, of course, Mars, Uranus. It's also what I call the free will aspect. Mars indicates your will and Uranus indicates freedom. So whenever you have these two combined in your chart, you need to deal with the idea of free will. If it's a square, however, it could be dangerous because then you are exercising your free will in a harsher mode. And that is why Mars, Uranus can also indicate accidents. So if it's a square, you may be accident prone. But if it's a trine or a sextile or one of the quintile series, then you know how to exercise your free will, and it means that you know how to take risks. You might sometimes take bigger risks than necessary, but you usually come out of it well, or at least you know that it was your own volition, your own risk taking that took you there. So you won't be mad at someone else. Jupiter Uranus is one of success combinations. The conjunction occurs every 12 years or so, every 12, 13 years. And this is an aspect that describes the chance to come out of a situation luckily, or it describes situations where you need to act fast and you need luck. So I call it the lucky break aspect, because that is what's happening. So when you have Jupiter Uranus, you might take bigger risks than average, simply because you know that you're lucky, and you know that you will come out of it alive, or at least intact. Those who have the Jupiter Uranus conjunction take higher risks than average. You might see those. They're sometimes very successful people. So no wonder this is a success aspect as well. And then Uranus-Pluto, this is a not so frequent aspect, because Uranus has an 84-year orbit and Pluto a 250-year orbit. The conjunction was between the end of 1964 till the middle of 1967. And the square was between 2011 and 2016, 7 times, and it really changed our world. So these are the two changers. Uranus denotes change and disruption and chaos and anarchy and the desire to break free, and Pluto is a big transformer. And whenever the two combine, it can indicate that is a risk-taking generation. And then I'm going to talk about Jupiter-Pluto first, and then Uranus Trans-Pluto last. Jupiter-Pluto is the best, the strongest success combination. It's very easy to see why. Nothing is ever enough for Pluto, and Jupiter fills everything with enthusiasm and enlarges everything it touches. So the two are really the Jolly Joker combinations, the best you can have. And that is why you are willing to take higher risks than average, because again, you trust your luck, Jupiter, and nothing is ever enough for you, Pluto. And the last one, which I should have exchanged, but here I don't mind it as it is the Jupiter Trans-Pluto aspect, and Uranus Trans-Pluto aspect. And this occurred last in 1958, maybe in 59 as well, but 58 for sure. So this is a very, very slow and very rare aspect, because Uranus's orbit is 84 years and Trans-Pluto's orbit is 668, 670, something like that years. So it is rare. Their conjunction is quite rare. And how it has you risk taking is very simple. Uranus is flashes of inspiration, and Trans-Pluto is dimension jump and channeling. So whenever the two combine, it gives you this aha feeling, this awe over something that you haven't realized yet, and it comes in a flash and it downpours on you, and you simply know what to do. And the last item on the list was Hamal, which is again a fixed star. So let's take a look at what we need to know about those fixed stars. First of all, I'm going to show you diadem, which is Alpha Coma de Berenice. This is a very dim constellation. It's a tiny constellation, not very big. As you can see, the Alpha star diadem is only 4.3 magnitude, so it's barely visible in the night sky. And the story behind Kuma Berenike is very simple. Berenike expects her husband to come home from a battle, and she's very scared that he's going to be wounded or dead. So he cuts her hair and puts the braid on the altar. And the next day it disappears, but the gods wanted her to indicate that they got the sacrifice, because the constellation Kuma Berenike appeared in the night sky. And this whole myth indicates something that is a type of sacrifice that is done quietly, privately, without actually indicating it, telling others. And there's an important fact here as well, which suggests that sometimes humiliation might also be involved in sacrifice, because in ancient times, when a woman it was a punishment to cut your hair. So when a woman's hair was cut, it was linked to some sort of punishment of shame. So shaming a woman is linked to cutting your hair, cutting your braid, cutting off your braid. And so she's willing to do that. So she is willing to shame herself in front of the gods without actually telling this to anyone. And I'm not saying that shame should be an ingredient in success in any way, but what I'm saying is the problem we are having with sacrifice, I think nowadays, is the fact that it is kind of somehow linked to shame. And shame is very important. It can be a debilitating factor in many ways, but it can be also fuel for success. But I'm not going to elaborate that because it's not that important. But anyhow, if you have diadem prominent, and diadem's placement at the moment is Libra 9 degrees 15, something like that, and the declination is 1725 on the northern hemisphere. So it is, these are the positions you need to watch if you take a look at in your chart. According to fixed stars, you allow it a 1 degree orb. So anything, if you have anything around 9 degrees or 10 degrees in your chart, in Libra, it will be conjunct, or not conjunct, actually aligned with your items in your natal chart. And in the declinations, if you have anything 70 to 70, I only allow like a 15, maybe 20 minute of an arc for declinations. The exact declinations at the moment is 1725. So if you have anything between 17, let's say 5 and 1750, then it is parallel as well. And then the next or the last item really is Hamal. And Hamal is the alpha star of the celestial ram, Aries. Sometimes it's the horn, sometimes the eye, depends on how the ram itself is depicted. And Hamal, its position is at the moment is 7 degrees 58 Taurus, and the declination is 23 degrees 34 in the northern hemisphere. So you can have it both conjunct and parallel. And again, it's now already in Taurus, in the sign Taurus. So it's in the constellation Aries. It's Alpha Aries, in fact, but it is already in the sign Taurus. And very interesting, if you have someone who was born around the 1st, then you will have a person who is actually not a regular Taurus, but a lot more challenging, risk-taking Taurus, because his or her sun is aligned with the fixed star Hamal. Hamal is the ideal word for risk-taking, because it simply means that You want to tread on your own path. You don't care what others think about you. You are willing to become the black sheep even, because you have this very strong idea, very strong call, and you are willing to risk anything that is necessary to achieve that particular goal. So those are the two fixed stars. There are other fixed stars as well, but I didn't want this video to be too long. Those are the main fixed stars, either linked to sacrifice or linked to risk-taking. And again, let's go back to the two signs, because it's interesting that sacrifices are very strongly linked to the to the sign Pisces, whereas risk-taking is something that Aries loves most. And these two signs are next to each other. One is the letting go sign. It's the end of the zodiac. It signifies the need to go back to the main soul pool where we all come from. So they leave behind the wheel of karma, the physical plane, and go back to the higher dimensions. And Aries signifies the moment when the incarnating soul decides to leave the soul pool and come down to the earth plane in order to come and be alone in its physical body, and for this you need will and desire, which this is described in the sign Aries. And these two signs are next to each other. They are the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. And so you can actually see that one comes from the other. And because the signs next to each other are always linked in a way that the next sign is always some sort of answer to the previous sign's shortcomings. And that's why I say that making a sacrifice, being able to make sacrifices, and being able to take risks are, again, important ingredients for success. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.